Welcome all of you chirpers out there to another virtual birdwalk presented by Chirp Nature Centers. This is the beginning of our third year of hosting free birdwalks that were once only in person and are now both in person and virtual. And you're seeing footage from our most recent birdwalk to Bluff Lake that was in person about a week ago. The exciting thing about this is that we had so much fun, we decided we're going to take you back there now virtually, because ultimately our goal at Chirp Nature Center is to get you connected to nature through birding any way we can, no matter where you are. So before we get started today, I want to introduce you to our guide. His name is Randy Putz, and in 2018, Randy created Chirp Nature Center with his wife Beth. And he's also a true outdoorsman. He's a nature enthusiast, and you can always find Randy outside. He's a habitual hiker. He's climbed Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount Whitney, and our local San Gregorio Mountain 13 times. And when he is not on the trail or selling seed, Randy is serving the Big Bear community. He's actually a founding member of the Big Bear Trails Foundation and has been leading Chirp Birdwalks for 3 years. So it looks like we're ready to get started.
Hi, Tori. We just drove about 20 minutes from Chirp Nature Center in the Big Bear Lake Village up Mill Creek Road to an area in the National Forest called Bluff Lake. We're near the Bluff Mesa group campground, and we're getting ready to go on another glorious bird walk.
Oh man, let me tell you, I love glorious bird walks, especially around Bluff Lake. Let me show you where we are. So we're going to be birding in Bluff Lake. It's about a 25-minute drive from Chirp Nature Center, and it is an ideal location for birding. And this is because when you bird, it's best to bird near a water source, because not only does it have a variety of vegetation, but it also attracts bugs, which ultimately attract the birds. And I want to remind you, today, you're not here just to watch, you're here to participate. You're a part of our birding team. So that means Randy's going to start describing birds that he hopes to see, and we need your help identifying them. So go ahead, post in the chat, comment, or just practice on your own. And I challenge you to try and guess as many birds as we see today, because ultimately, the more that you practice, the better you will become at identifying birds. All right, looks like we're ready to get started.
I can already hear the birds. They are welcoming us. I can smell the pines and all the aromatic aerosols that they expend that are really good for us. Someday we'll talk about forest bathing, which is a whole thing in Japan. But before we go, I always make sure I have the things I need. I've got my trusty Zeiss binoculars, which helps me identify the birds that are distant. I have my favorite Peterson's Field Guide, and I have my app, my bird app on my iPhone, and of course my Chirp Wild Bird Checklist for the Big Bear Valley. I am all set. I hope you're set. Let's go birding.
Well, I'm glad that Randy remembered all of the gear, so let's get birding.
It's a short walk from the parking area to the actual Bluff Lake, 5-10 minutes.
Oh, are you okay, Randy? Are you seeing something?
Just when we do these walks, sometimes we're surprised, and I just saw a bird of prey, and it was a red-tailed hawk. It's always exciting when you see things like that pop out of nowhere. Anyway, as I was saying, it's a 5 or 10 minute walk from the parking area to the actual lake.
And it looks like the birds are out and about today, which is great for us. And Randy is already on the lookout for a very specific type of bird. Let's help him identify it.
I'm keeping my eyes out in the pine trees, especially some of the burnt ones, for a bird that is the only kind in North America of this particular species that has a black body and a white head. The males have a little red patch on the back of the neck. There's some white on the wings. This bird is attracted to burned areas because it will nest in fallen dead logs and trees. And it feeds primarily on pine nuts, which it'll actually cling to a whole pine cone and pull the nut out, and then usually it flies away and eats the nut somewhere else. These are also nature's exterminators in that they will flake away the pine bark and eat different beetles and bugs, and so that, of course, is helpful to the ecosystem. This would be a white-headed woodpecker.
All right, how did you do? This bird is only found in high elevation, like mountainous pine forests of the western states and British Columbia, so it's pretty lucky that we got to see one today. And they're not as noisy when they forage like their other woodpecker family members, but they do drum during spring to mark their nesting territories. Let's hear what the yammering call of one of these white-headed woodpeckers sounds like. All right, one bird down and many birds to go, so let's keep walking.
When you get to this area around Bluff Lake, you will notice that parts of it have been burned, and this is the work of the Forest Service doing prescribed burns, which they do under very specific, safer circumstances. And the idea behind it is that over a century of fire suppression in our national forests has created high fuel loads, which contributes to catastrophic wildfires. And when they're able to come in and burn these forests with lower heat under very controlled conditions, it is safer for the surrounding communities, and it is also healthier for the forest and everything that lives in it. One of the interesting things about fire in our forests is that there are beetles that are attracted to heat and to smoke. And they will actually descend on a forest that's burning or has burned. And guess what loves beetles? Birds.
And it's actually interesting because burnt areas have a higher concentration of woodpeckers than a normal undisturbed forest. And this is because, as Randy mentioned, all of the beetles being attracted to this area obviously attracts the woodpeckers that eats the beetles. So even though this ecosystem looks kind of dead, it's rather vibrant. And hopefully we'll get to spot some more woodpeckers on our walk, but right now I guarantee that this bright bird that we're seeing in the trees, it probably belongs to a different family.
In these pine trees, I'm also looking for another seed specialist. This is a kind of finch that has a more triangular beak that's designed especially for crushing those pine seeds. It is purple, and it looks like it's been dipped in raspberry juice. It also looks a lot like a house finch or a Cassin's finch, and it's a fun trick to figure out which is which because it takes a bit of skill to distinguish between them. These finches will often fly together in flocks. They're very social. They can be very aggressive, and they'll often end up in pecking wars with other birds. This would be a purple finch.
And what a beautiful bird it is. Purple finches actually nest under overhanging branches, and they'll nest anywhere from 2.5 feet to 60 feet off the ground. And as Randy mentioned, it is fun to be able to distinguish birds from each other. So to help you distinguish the purple finch from the house finch, here's a few tips. The house finch has a more slender body, and they're red like a strawberry. They have a longer tail and a smaller bill. Whereas the purple finch, as Randy mentioned, looks like it's been dipped in raspberry juice, and the color extends from the head to the lower part of the body. It also has a short tail and a more triangular bill. So there you go. Also, it does have a very quick little chirp. Just like that. Oh, it looks like we're seeing something else in the distance.
So, red-winged blackbird, you'll see them in wet, marshy areas, very common, have a beautiful call. The other thing about this area, I'd mentioned the lodgepole pines. Turns out that the largest lodgepole pine in the world is right over there. Huge.
And during our in-person walk, we actually got to visit this champion lodgepole. It's what it's called. It's over 110 feet tall and 452 years old. And as you can see, there are many pines in this area, which means that we should be on the lookout for some pine tree loving birds.
This meadow below Bluff Lake is surrounded by lodgepole pines. And in these lodgepole pines, I'm looking for a medium-sized songbird, a finch actually, that is brick red, and it has a unique bill in that the bill extends and actually crosses. And this is designed to be able to get into pine cones and spread the scales apart and get at seeds. These finches are very dependent on the pine cone and the pine nut supply, and they'll actually breed later in the season, more in the late summer or in the fall, when the pine cone and the pine nut supply is higher. Sometimes they'll even breed in the winter, and they will migrate about following these food supplies. This would be a red crossbill.
And ever since I learned about these birds, I've always been fascinated by their beak adaptation, which proves to be very advantageous, because a bird's biting muscle is actually stronger than the muscle it uses to open the bill, right? So when these red crossbills will bite down, the crossbills help them pry open the seeds and pry open the pine cones and get to the seeds. And in North America, there are 11 different types, which are distinguished by their flight. And, interestingly enough, many of them specialize on a particular species of pine cone based on the size of their bill. So, for example, some of these crossbills will have smaller bills, meaning that they specialize in eating and prying open smaller pine cones. Pretty smart. They also have a very sharp metallic call note. And it looks like we've spotted yet another bright birdie in the bushes, but I'll give you a hint. It's this bird's headgear that kind of gives it away. Let's see if you can guess it before Randy does.
A pretty small songbird, maybe a little bit bigger than a hummingbird. Small, compact body, short wings, bigger head, a short, sharp beak. This is an insect specialist. We'll see it around here probably more in the fall or the spring, migrating through because it breeds up north. It has a gray bottom, a olive top, black and white striped head, and what's unique about this one is it has a yellowish orange crown on the top, and this would be the golden-crowned kinglet.
The golden-crowned kinglet, did you get it? It is a compact little bird and a weather warrior because it winters in locations that reach below -40 degrees at nights. It's pretty crazy. So small but mighty. The males are actually very territorial, and they will chase away other birds from their territory by flaring their crown and kind of showing off, which you can see in this video. You can also listen very closely for their high, thin whistle sound. Beautiful. Whoa, you're not going to want to miss this next view. Check out where we ended up.
Here we are at 7,600 feet at Bluff Lake. It's about 20 acres big. It is unique in that it is a high altitude alpine lake in Southern California. Beautiful area, and because of the water, of course, it attracts a lot of wildlife and especially a lot of birds. This site has several threatened species of plants that live in this area. It also was a stop once upon a time ago in the early 1900s when there was a toll road that went from Redlands up the Santa Ana River Canyon, would stop here at Bluff Lake and then go down Mill Creek into Big Bear Lake. This also was the site, the camp that's over there, of a couple significant movies. One was The Parent Trap, the Walt Disney film in 1961, and the other was Dr. Dolittle 2, starring Eddie Murphy.
Well, I think these views are well worth the wait. Just look at that. Ah, Let's take a closer look at some of the ducks that are in the water.
On the edge of the lake, here in the reeds, this is a typical nesting area for this bird. At first you might be tempted to think that it's a mallard, but you need to look more closely because this waterfowl has a dark rear end, white on its wings, and more intricately patterned plumage. They eat a lot of invertebrates, snails, and things like that in the water, and this would be a gadwall.
And let me tell you, gadwalls are only interested in prime nest real estate. So during breeding season, they will actually select their nest by flying low over the dry grassy areas. And then the males will stand guard while the females will go in and kind of take a closer look at the potential nest area. They also will feed in slightly deeper water than dabbling ducks, so that's kind of a way to distinguish them. And we saw 10 of them during our Global Big Day bird count on May 8th. That's pretty cool. Let's listen to the late night call of a female, probably resting on a nest. And it looks like this male gadwall is not the only one who will be joining us today.
We also saw a mother with 4 ducklings. Too cute.
Oh, and did you see that? I also see another duck on the water, but it's definitely not a gadwall or a mallard. Do you know what it is?
In the water of the lake, I'm looking for a duck. I won't see it on land, typically, just in the water. It's North America's smallest diving duck. The male has a beautiful white, purple, and green head, beautiful iridescent green and purple. It will actually nest in small woodpecker or flicker holes, and this would be the bufflehead.
Well, the bufflehead has been around for quite a while. There are fossils that are over 500,000 years old that were found in Alaska, California, Florida, Illinois, Kansas, Texas, and Washington. They also will dive for an average of about 12 seconds, and they even eat underwater. And so to dive, they'll compress their plumage all together to squeeze out all of the air, then leap forward and plunge downward. It's quite a sight to see. They also are more quiet than other birds, but you can hear the sound of a female just across the lake. And it sounds like someone else is singing their lake song in the glades.
If I'm quiet for a moment, I'm hearing lots of bugs, which is a good thing, of course. I'm also hearing the red-winged blackbird. We've talked about that and seen that before, pretty common. But they're especially common in wet, marshy areas. But, oh, their song is beautiful.
Let's see if we can hear it again. Love that. And as we turn our attention back to the surrounding pines, you can just hear a drumming sound in the distance. Can you name the culprit?
Okay, medium-sized, about 8 inches long, long beak, red head, dark on the back, gray on the front, little white spot in front of the eye. This bird will peck at pine trees and create shallow holes and then drink the sap. Interestingly, there are hummingbirds that will follow this bird along and feed in those sap holes that this bird created.
This would be a red-breasted sapsucker. And not only does it sip sap, but it also enjoys insects, fruit, and arthropods. There are 2 subspecies. There's a northern one that's kind of in the Alaska to Oregon area. It's redder on the head and has less white on the back. And then there's the southern version, which is mostly in California, which shows kind of black and white face stripings, but all the facial features are dipped in red. and you can hear the begging call deep in the pine forest. And if you want to know more about some wacky woodpeckers, here's how.
If you find Woody Woodpecker and his friends interesting, we have a woodpecker talk by one of our bird specialists coming up soon. Be sure to look for that online.
And whether you're going to watch the woodpecker talk live or later, it's all recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can enjoy it whenever you want. And I'm sure that this next feathered friend will probably be featured.
I'm hearing pecking sound, and this of course is going to be a kind of woodpecker, but the question is what kind. It's different than one that looks like it, the downy woodpecker. This one has a longer beak, it has a black checkered back, it has a black striped head and a little bit of red on the back of the neck, the males do. It's an insectivore, loves the bugs. One question we often get at Chirp is, I have these woodpeckers that are pecking incessantly. And of course, they do that during mating season to attract females. And they'll especially enjoy doing that on your chimney pipes because it's loud and amplifies their sound.
All right, did you guess? It's the hairy woodpecker, and they're actually pretty hungry. They will eat other woodpeckers' leftovers, so they will search through excavated holes made by pleated woodpeckers, and they'll look for missing insects. And they'll also sometimes drink the sap that's leaking from the wells in the bark made by the sapsuckers. And when climbing a tree, they actually use their tail as kind of a prop. They'll lean back and spring upward with both feet at once. It's quite a sight to see. And probably my favorite thing about these birds is they totally sound like a squeaker toy. See? Well, we have walked the Bluff Lake loop, and it looks like we have about one more bird that we're going to try and spot before our walk ends. So, oh, looks like we've seen him. What do you think it is?
White front, mottled, brown, blackish back, curved bill, slender curved bill. This bird hops, and it typically hops up a tree, and you won't often see it hopping down because it'll hop up and then it'll fly down and it'll hop up, of course looking for insects. It nests in unusual places, sometimes like under roof eaves or behind window shutters, and it makes its nests, which are sort of hammock-like, out of spider egg casings and insect cocoons. This is a brown creeper.
And getting to see these birds up close, it kind of makes sense where their name comes from. And in Arizona, the creepers actually make nests that have two openings. So there's an entrance and an exit. The entrance mostly faces downward and the exit upwards. Some nice architecture there. They also burn an estimated 4 to 10 calories per day, which may not sound like a lot, but they're kind of a little guy. And by eating one spider, they actually have the energy to climb 200 feet, which is the height, I guess maybe length, of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And their call is described as a rather insistent and high-pitched call. Well, I have to say I'm pretty satisfied with the variety of birds that we saw today. So go ahead and let me know, how many birds did you identify? And regardless, I hope you had fun. And be sure to stick around because we have a special prize for you as well. But before then, Randy wants to say his thank you.
Thank you for joining us today here at the beautiful Bluff Lake, way up high in the San Bernardino National Forest. I encourage you to follow us on all the social media and to attend either in person or virtually our walks and talks that we have every month. And if you are in Big Bear Lake, please stop by Chirp and say hello. We'd love to see you in person. Stay well. Happy birding.
All right, so don't leave just yet. As we're admiring this final beautiful view of where we got to bird, I want to tell you about the grand prize that you can enter to win for all of your hard work today. All right, so all you have to do is go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz. You'll take a 2-minute quiz, which will enter you in to win this prize. So you know the guide that Randy was talking about at the very beginning of our walk? Well, you can win it for free by taking this quiz. And everyone who takes the quiz will automatically be mailed a one-of-a-kind birding bear sticker. Now, the stickers that we make at Chirp Nature Center, we make ourselves. So there's no other sticker out there just like it, and I guarantee this one will put a smile on your face. Oh, but don't forget, you only have 24 hours to complete the quiz before we close it and choose a prize winner. So, if you want that to be you, go ahead and take it right now. Like I said, super easy, super quick. Go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz and just fill it out. All right, until we see you again, first off, thank you so much for joining us, and we would love to meet you in person. Chirp Nature Center is located in Big Bear Lakes Village in California, but you can reach us anytime at help@chirpforbirds.com or check out our website, chirpforbirds.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. We guarantee by following us on social media, you will continue to enlarge your bird brain because we're always posting interesting facts about wild birds, feeders, houses, and tips and tricks to get some feathered friends in your backyard. So, before you go ahead and check the chat. We're going to post the birdwalk quiz and an eBird list from the in-person birdwalk that we had at Bluff Lake about a week ago. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you yet again.